Rightio, gentlemen. Hello again, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan quickie reading. And curiously enough, you may remember that it took me until the beginnings of 2025 to actually start talking about Chris's affair with his own mother. And surprisingly enough, this is probably going to be the first time actually discussing Chris's tenure, if you will, at Central Virginia Regional Jail. And what you're going to see throughout all this is actually you'll be very, very surprised because, bizarrely enough, whether it's in school, whether it's the game place, whether it's, PVCC, strangely enough, Chris views this actually as a complete joke. And I genuinely do not think for 1 second anything that Chris has done before, it's actually sunk in yet. Because nothing sinks in. Chris's skull is far too dense for his own good. So let's get started, shall we? This facility is 2 out of 5 stars. Chris, it's not a boot camp. It's not a holiday camp. Well, I've had a hell of an evening. Since Christine was needed extensively in Quickville and in both all of 1C-211987 and 1218 Earths, she left me, took all of her self, lock, stock, and barrel. I ended up on the floor and unconscious/comatose for over an hour, literally, and the jerk-ops present mocked and jested my serious plight. Chris taking his role-playing coping to unbelievable new heights, even by Chris's standards. Nothing is ever going to confirm to Chris exactly what sort of trouble he gets himself into. Central Virginia Regional Jail, or as Chris once called it, this jail of fail, serves 5 largely rural counties in Central Virginia, including Greene County. It houses both male and female inmates. Chris was sent to the jail following incestuous acts on his mother, where he was held without bond from the 2nd of August 2021 through to the 28th of February 2022, when he was transferred to Western State Hospital, and again from the 3rd of May 2022 until he was released from custody on the 27th of March 2023. It is located about 16 miles away from 14 Branch Lane Court. Accommodations. In an October 2021 letter to a fan, Chris related the jail accommodations 2 out of 5 stars, praising the mostly good food, good selection of items in the commissary and the rec room, and criticizing attitudes from jail jerk-ops and really noisy neighbors. In another letter, Chris claimed to have a bidet in his jail cell, possibly referring to the sink/toilet combination common in jails. Chris once overheard a woman giving birth at 5 in the morning, noting how loud it had been. In the Goddess log, he remarked about a fellow inmate named Charlie Sprouse who was banging on the cell door, yelling and making rooster noises. Chris was evidently in protective custody as of November 2021, noting in a jail letter that I do not interact with other inmates often, especially since they opted to keep me separated for them for my safety. Chris was housed either in the medical or for a few months in the booking facilities of the jail. For activities, Chris mentioned playing solo basketball, listening to the radio, reading, writing, drawing, and placed heavy emphasis on meditation. On the 30th of November, Chris said in a jail letter that he had been restricted from the rec room and could no longer play basketball. From his day-to-day hygiene, Chris described it as a daily shower with Bob Barker soap or Irish spring water soap, water, washcloth, and shampoo and towel. I also brush my teeth with Colgate toothpaste and every other day Apple Ladies Speed deodorant. So really, when you think about it, jail is literally seen nothing more than as just a hotel for Chris. So even at even for the state of Virginia, their taxpayers' expense was pretty much just to keep Chris where Chris had always been, looking up at a hole in the sky. That got it. Behavioral issues. Chris had multiple behavioral issues with staff. He threatened the S word in an attempt to have phone and internet privileges, equipment which he had deemed necessary for his plans. The move resulted in him being placed on restriction, during which he was forbidden from using razors. Consequently, he grew out a beard, which he disliked. Probably the first beard Chris had since at least 2009. He pretended that his soul had retreated into Quickville and laid on the floor for an hour while acting unconscious. Chris claimed the gods mocked him over it. Also, he had drawn a portal on the wall in pen, which was in the shape of an arch and big enough that he could have gone through it. Chris claimed in response to fan inquiries that he had drawn it to enlighten the stage and that manifestations had occurred within the portal. And as you can see right here, Chris's mugshot seems to be very, very particular. For example, this is Chris almost looking completely content with the fact that he's in prison. Then you have May 2022, almost a year later. Notice how Chris kind of looks somewhat forlorn and rather disheveled at the thought that actually I think it's just occurred to Chris how long he's been in prison and probably how long he had to go. And this is how you see Chris's mugshot upon release. And Chris just kind of looks like, oh, I'm getting out of here. Well, that sucks. Yeah, even when being released from jail, Chris can't help but look somewhat just nonplussed. Which I find that very confusing for some reason. You would have thought Chris would have been elated at the thought of being released. But as it turns out, no. It turns out no. Chris couldn't care either way. Because, again, it means Chris is just being released into the outer world where Chris would have to face responsibility once again. And yet, surprisingly, this is a thing that didn't change before Chris went to prison or upon his release. I think I'll be able to cover a lot more of these in the subsequent jail saga, which will be coming up in a few days' time. So, realistically, that's all we've got time for today, and among many other things, what I find kind of interesting about this whole little article about Central Virginia Regional Jail is that actually, when you stop to think about it, nothing about what we've discussed, nothing about what Chris got up to, nothing about what Chris was in trouble for, it never sunk in for one instance about why Chris was here and why Chris was not fighting for his freedom. Because surely he would have had a lawyer to have discussed details, but upon knowing that what Chris had already disclosed to multiple people, I think hiring Bell would probably not be a good idea. They certainly wouldn't be able to afford his fees at any rate. So, with all that being said and done, all I can say is, well, don't do something that'll get you sent to prison. That's my lookout at any rate. I've never done Bird myself, and to be honest, I would like to keep it that way. I think that's more of a universal thing, but if I didn't say it, then you guys wouldn't be able to hear it. So, with that being said, I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.